Hello, my friends. Welcome to Section 5, where we're going to learn how to store data onto the local device. This feature is important, as they're data which we want to retrieve even if the device restarts. In the previous section, we discussed about Simple Apple Watch app. In this section, we'll look at many ways of storing information on the device, and we're going to learn how to create a file ourselves. Then we'll see how to use user defaults, and finally, we'll see how to deal with a database framework called Core Data. Now we move on to the first video of this section that deals with files, which is a very common task. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to save data onto the local device. To do so, we'll see the directories available for our app, how to obtain such information, and then we'll be able to save them on the local device. Before we start saving or reading files, we need to know where they're stored and where it's allowed to save a file and where it's not. That's the reason we'll learn the iOS apps directory structure. The first detail that we need to know is that each app has its own directory for reading and writing files. These files can only be used from the app where they belong to. Thus, don't consider solutions like using one file for exchanging information between apps. It's not unusual, but the directories might change on different iOS versions. For example, until iOS 7, the bundle directory was in the same level as the documents directory. Since iOS 8, they're in different locations. Let's see some of the available directories. The bundle. Here's where the app is located and other resources that come together with it. It's allowed reading from this directory, but not writing on it. Home directory. This directory is an initial directory where the app data can be stored. Here's where Documents Library and TMP hang from. Documents. This is a directory for storing files that are exposed to the user, like pictures and videos. Library. Here's where we should store files that are not exposed to the user, like configurations and settings. TMP. For temporary files. How can we retrieve these paths? Very easy. For the bundle, we can use bundle.main.bundlePath for the path as a string, or bundle.main.bundle_URL for retrieving a URL. NS home directory is a function for the string with the home directory, and a similar function called NS temporary directory for the temporary directory. For the documents and library, we can use the other functions. NS search path for directories and domains for a string, where the first argument can be document directory or .library directory. If using URL is preferred, we can use file manager.default URLs for directory. Which one shall we use? Strings or URL? Basically, we could choose any of them. We could say that strings are easier to use, and besides that, as they started being used first, we could say that they are more extended. However, URL replaces strings for file usage, and they allow us to use files from different sources, like from the network. The next question is, how can we append the file name on these paths? Both URL and strings have a method called appending path component. However, as this method is not available in Swift anymore, we have to cast the string into an NS string. Once we've understood the previous concepts, we can start saving and reading data. The easiest way for saving a string into a file is using the method called write from a string. Here we have to send the file path as string, a parameter called atomically, which means that we can't have a halfway file, and its character set, which is usually UTF-8. This method might trigger an error. Therefore, we have to use it and try statements surrounded by do catch. Reading the file is also very simple. We could just create a string with an initializer contents of file. As it might fail if the file doesn't exist, or for any other reason, we also have to use the try statement. Whenever the URLs are preferred, we can use the equivalent methods, write to URL and contents of URL. Another way of storing files is using File Manager. This class allows us to manipulate and retrieve information from files and directories. Usually we can retrieve an instance with the static property default. However, we can instantiate our own object if we want to use different delegates. The File Manager delegate has many methods that control which operations can be done. File Manager works with objects of our class, called data, which is the representation of raw data. Very important when we're working with binary data. We can read the contents of a file with a method called contents@path. The writing operation can be performed with createFile@path. In this video, we learned the directory structure on iOS and also how to manipulate files for reading and writing them.